Welcome to today's episode of the podcast where we discuss the most recent installment of a different series every show. It is Tuesday, March 24th. Over the weekend, Saturday Night Live popped over the pond for its inaugural UK episode hosted by Tina Fey. Now, the US version is in its season 51. It's going pretty strong. It's going better than The Bachelor or The Bachelorette is right now.
It's had like a resurgence. Have you realized that?
I think it goes in, it's like a sine wave because what happens is that the cast graduates, and
Right.
Lorne Michaels has talked about this a lot. And then you get the newbies in there, and it takes a while for things to meld. And then I think right now, yeah, they're in a good place.
Because like 2024 was Saturday Night, the movie, and then the 50th anniversary was last year, and then just recently they like had their 1,000th episode.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, it's like a bunch of different criteria that they're hitting.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think that has anything to do with it. So I think Lorne Michaels is seriously responsible for everybody's success. He's launched the careers of everyone from Chevy Chase to Kenan Thompson. And that includes now because Kenan Thompson is still part of the cast, the longest serving member, right?
right.
The
Since
weirder thing to me,
2003.
though, is that Lorne Michaels not only follows them into SNL, but he follows them out of SNL, all their projects. So he's
Right.
like an EP on everything. Mean Girls, the other two, Schmigadoon, Keenan, Bust Down, The Kids in the Hall, AP Bio, Shrill, Los Spookies,
Is Brooklyn
Detroiters,
Nine-Nine there?
Mulaney. I'm sure it is. The point is that, like, it doesn't matter how niche it gets. You're talking about Fred Armisen's Los Spookies, and he's executively producing that. That's crazy. There's that, and then there's the fact that SNL itself has breeded into like spin-off skits that have turned into movies.
Yes.
Blues Brothers, MacGruber, Coneheads. There's I think like 7, 8 more of those. And then yeah, you were talking about the movie that was even made about the original Saturday Night.
Took place on the first night that they were going to
the
be
original
shooting it
Saturday
live.
Night.
Right.
And then A Futile and Stupid Gesture, which kind of followed the Harvard Lampoon storyline and the National Lampoon thing and how that adapted and turned into Saturday Night Live as well. And then starting in 2010s, and I think this was just a wave of reality shows because The Voice did it too. You had all these things that all these other countries that decided to just pick it up. Japan, Italy, France, Spain, Canada, and Korea.
Well, not just the 2010s. The Brits have been trying to do their own version of SNL multiple times, even back as far as 1985. 1988, they came out with something called Friday Night Live or Saturday Live. It went by both names. It had television appearances from Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, and Craig Ferguson. And then throughout the years, they did specials there. In 2008, there was a British show called Tonightly, which was more of a satirical panel show, but still had sketches and people compared it a lot to SNL.
So sketch comedy, but this one is taking the exact form. It's trying to mimic it. I would say about that 1988 timeline, it is funny that that's when Whose Line became big in the UK, and then it got adapted by the US, and we stole the name and we made it into something completely different.
Yeah.
But also stole the people who were in it because Ryan Stiles and Colin
Yes.
Mockery were originally in that version, right?
I
Anyways.
was surprised to see Hugh Laurie show up there. But do you remember the first SNL you ever saw?
No.
'Cause I-
I think Derek Jeter was in it. So like maybe 2004 or something like that.
So you're going
2003.
way back. The first one I ever saw was season 33, episode 8, Jonah Hill's first episode with musical guest Mariah Carey. That was March 15th, 2008. So I was in 3rd grade. But
I
I
think Mariah
remember.
Carey dated Derek Jeter at one point. I'm just drawing the connection.
Yeah. But ironically enough, I was in New York when I saw it. And then I think I really started to watch it that next season. I remember Michael Phelps hosted the season 34 premiere.
Right.
And I feel like it's been a part of like everyone's childhood. Like I feel like a lot of people watch this.
Not everyone's. I don't think a lot of people watch SNL. Like I think comedians in America, everybody has their it's threaded throughout that everybody's linked in one way or another to Lorne Michaels and SNL, late night shows, everything like that. But I don't think everybody's tuned in to it's very popular. But I do understand why the UK has decided that this is the time that they're going to try it out. Now, they decided to bring in Tina Fey, who is kind of like Lorne Michaels' heir apparent, the person who's always been considered to be, if Lorne Michaels dies or steps down, that she would take over and be the main person in SNL US. So I can see why they did that. And then you had Wet Leg being the musical guest. I'm not as familiar about Wet Leg. I did feel like maybe for a first episode, you could have gotten a bigger band, but, maybe they're extremely popular there. I do have a game for you, though. How do you think Wet Leg was named? Were they named after Wetterson Legworth? Emojis? the front girl's nickname was Wet Leg, or the opposite of the past band that they were all a part of, Dry Hand?
I'm gonna go with the opposite of the past band.
You think that they were at one point called Dry Hand,
Yes.
one of the members left, and they decided to change to Wet Leg. That's
Yeah.
not what happened. No,
Oh.
it's just based off emojis. The emoji of like water and a leg.
So I found it so funny because you have wet leg, then you have kneecap, which I know is more Irish, but still part of the
And very
EU.
like politically actively.
And then there's like a different band called Sprained Ankles. So there are three big bands in the EU that like have that
And
are
they
all
all
about
hate
the
each
lower
other.
hand. No, but
No, I
I,
hear
I
what
I
you're
wanted
saying.
to talk about what you said about Tina Fey because if you remember in 2013, she hosted and she kind of ushered in the new cast with Beck Bennett, Kyle Mooney, Brooks Wheelan, and I didn't really know what to expect from the show, but I was excited that they chose her to be the first host.
And you said what year was that?
That was 2013.
And I'm assuming during that like first or that episode that she came in there, she was doing some of her most well-known characters, her
Yes.
Sarah Palin character, her like, the returning to Weekend Update, things like that. So that's what I was kind of expecting here. And she kind of spent her monologue saying that's not what she's doing. She
Yeah.
said this is a new show and swearing's permitted,
Yep,
but
they can say fuck, which is funny because SNL has gone in trouble in the past for characters or
of
people
course
accidentally saying
they
it.
still do.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a huge fee for them. But after 9 o'clock in the UK, it's okay to swear. Nudity is also, I think, permitted. But the thing about her monologue, which the monologues are never like amazing. Sometimes if you have a stand up comedian there, you can have some better ones. But like for Tina Fey, it just felt like she spent it defending why she was over there. Like, oh, this is this, I have the right to be here because I'm trying to just introduce you, but I'm not trying to get in the way of these people. I'm going to stand back and let the cast shine. And I feel for an inaugural episode, that's the wrong way of going about it. Think about the original SNL when all those fresh faces came in there in
Right.
1975.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't watching it, but I do know that it wasn't a hit right off the bat. What happened was you had George Carlin, right? That was the guy from the first episode, or at
Right.
least the first
Yes.
couple. I know you had big bands showing up in the first season. I think Paul McCartney was even there. But like you let the established comedians who have an audience do some of the hard work and keep people laughing, and then you slowly like integrate the cast so that they become. I feel like this was rushed because they realized they only have 8 episodes, so there were going to be growing pains, and so you ended up getting just a cluster of all these new faces and Tina Fey not actually doing any of the skits that she's known for. If you think about it, her background, like she even mentioned it, she's known for Mean Girls. They
Yeah.
could have done a Mean Girls sketch.
She
They
even
could have done
directed the musical movie. Yeah.
They've done 30 Rock sketches, I'm
Yep.
sure they're familiar with 30 Rock over there. They were familiar with Friends. She could have been in the Weekend Update. She could have made fun of herself from the American Express ads that she does.
I thought for sure Amy Poehler was going to show up because they were such good friends, and
Right.
usually when one of them hosts, the other one makes an appearance.
So I do feel like it was a bit of a misstep right out the gate to not have her be more of a focal point for so that she's hosting. She's the host.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be about them. It's supposed to be about whatever they're promoting at the time, and she's promoting the show. But I feel like she could have used a couple more skits where she was the actual central figure.
I agree with you. It's almost like in superhero movies where they try to like usher in a new superhero but you really are there for kind of the old person or the person who's been like the main superhero the whole time.
Sort of. It's like if you had a Captain America return and then you had a bunch of new people and then Captain America was only there for like 5 minutes.
I thought that Tina Fey's monologue actually was my favorite part of the whole entire episode.
Yeah, no, I like the cameos. I
Yeah.
liked Graham Norton showing up and Michael Cera and Nicola Coughlan.
I enjoyed the intro also circa 2010, not 2010s, 2010 SNL where it just showed a lot of people on the streets and having their names. And then yeah, I really really enjoyed Michael Cera because he seems to like to do a lot of cameos nowadays, especially kind of as himself or the characters he plays like in Black Mirror, The Running Man. I even remember he was in an episode of The Shivering Truth. Graham Norton, I think my favorite part from the monologue is when he got on stage and started interviewing her like it was his show.
Well, it was filmed in his studio,
Right.
which is different than again, it's kind of like the old Yankee Stadium and how that had a lot of mystique about it because it was the house that Ruth built and it was tiny and the fans could feel like how it was kind of rickety
Yeah.
at that time. This doesn't have that. This is literally built into a studio that has been around forever. so you do have the jazz players, you have the saxophonists and stuff, but it's wider. You can tell that right off the bat, and it's not exactly got the same sort of ambiance that you would expect from the original. It doesn't look as consolidated or small, despite the fact that it seems like it has a tinier budget. The thing about Michael Cera I find interesting is that Jamie Dorman, I think, is hosting like the third
I think
episode.
he's doing it next week. I think he's gonna be the second
Riz
host.
Ahmed, I thought, was next
Riz
week.
Ahmed, I think, is the third.
All right, whatever.
episode.
The point being that like he's going to be doing a future episode, and right now Michael Cera is directing and has written his first film, and he's going to star in it. So it is
Huh.
interesting how he ended up being in the Tina Fey episode and not in the Jamie Dornan one. And I don't think we should ignore that Nicola Coughlan also is probably the most famous one for the Brits over
Right,
there
Dairy
because of Dairy
Girls.
Girls. And it's just funny with having watched from Belfast to Heaven or whatever, Heaven
Yeah.
to Belfast, how like the other girl from Dairy Girls showed up in that show
Right.
at the same time because it was created by the same creator.
How did
So-
you feel about the cold open?
Yeah,
like,
let's go
taking it
through the
back?
show skits real quick. So the cold open, it's funny because the US has even ragged itself at this point about how political it's gotten and how
Yeah.
they wish they could have gone back. I really wish that they'd use this opportunity as the first episode to do a simple sketch to show off their comedy chops rather than trying to do exactly what the US does, because I'm sorry, Keir Starmer is not going to meet the craziness that is Trump right now. And it just felt like they were kind of playing little brother to that. Keir Starmer was just a weak pushover in the sketch. It seemed to rely on that one joke the entire time. And had they, if there was a moment to just show one time where they were going to pay homage to the original series, it would have been then, maybe to do something similar to the first show ever in 1975 and
That
do
would've
like a
been-
therapist
yeah,
type sketch or
That
something.
would that
like
would have been interesting, but I actually found the sketch to be more interesting than funny because I still actually enjoyed it because I
because
was
you learn something. You now
Yeah.
know who Keir Starmer is.
It reminded me, this is kind of a far off connection, but of a different British show featuring puppets back in the 90s called Spitting Image, where they would make fun of the Labour Party as well. And this was doing exactly that as well. So
it is
I
because
thought,
he is the leader of the Labor Party,
So
and
I
he's
thought
faced
that-
his own criticism because of the guy in the Epstein files and stuff like that. But any country right now, especially in the EU, that is dealing with the kind of heavy shadow that is Trump and what he's doing in the Middle East, is just going to be kind of open to being made fun of in the same way because they really have their hands tied. I don't really think it matters, honestly, that he's in the Labor Party versus Tories or conservatives or whatever else there is over there. But like, it just seems like no leader in the EU is going to be able to handle this with grace.
Right.
So I don't think that it's a terrible sketch. I think it was just like kind of mid. And then I would say the same thing for the next one that I have written down here, which is the internet sketch, which was kind of like an Inside Out situation where you have a bunch of people who are working to like just make people's lives annoying with their internet.
There was no sketch that I found to be just outright hilarious, but there were 3 sketches in particular that I thought at different points were funny, and one of them was the Budger sketch that you're talking about, because at the very beginning, I liked how they had the people that were just making small little X's and pop-ups.
Introducing their jobs.
And I thought that was creative, but I thought that kind of by the end of the sketch, the second half, it lost its way.
It's only like a minute long though, so yeah. The next one was probably my favorite sketch of the night, which was the David Attenborough one.
That was your favorite sketch?
Yes,
Okay.
probably, because you got the full cast. That was the one where I was like, okay, I can see why Tina Fey would take a step back and let everybody else have their moment. I think that, like, at least for me, even if it wasn't perfect, you still, the idea that you're able to see everybody on one stage, that was a really smart thing to do with The Last Meal. It's such a preposterous premise that he used his brother's work in the Jurassic Park series, David Attenborough's brother's work in the Jurassic Park series. I think his name was Richard Attenborough. And then he used that like DNA splicing to make these people alive, kind of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure style, so that you have them all sitting next to each other and then they end up just complaining about the hors d'oeuvres.
The Last Supper, yeah. I also had this here as one of the sketches I found funny. Jack Sheep as Princess Diana, I think, stole that sketch.
As a meme, I think that's already circulating the internet right now. Just his facial expression. It's funny because nobody's impression of any specific person did I think was right home about.
Well, even
however,
how they looked, like Winston Churchill and Freddie Mercury looked nothing like them. They just dressed them in the same type of clothes. Yeah.
exactly. No, and I thought that was very that it was funny. Yeah, and so the next one though was the underage skincare regime or whatever, where all the guys were getting arrested. I don't know. This one kind of fell flat to me as well. I'll give it like kind of worse than mid tier, but not like terrible.
It felt like it was one of the edgy ones. Did you realize with this show that, like, at times with the Last Supper one, it seemed like it was almost Studio C, family friendly, and then there was other ones where it just seemed like they were trying so hard to be kind of, at least grading or walking that line of
I
raunchy?
guess, I feel like it was just making fun of a drug commercial or like a skincare product thing, but I just felt like, again, some of these were problematic in that it had one funny joke at the start and then it just
Right.
kept haranguing the same thing. And SNL, the original, does that too. Quite a lot. However, you usually have the personalities behind it where there's something redeemable about that. But it goes along to like something later on with the Paddington Bear thing where it was just the one joke was that there was an evil bear.
I thought you were gonna bring up the movie interview, the one joke, because I did
Well,
break.
that's the next one. So the Movies Cinema interview, where they have two people who are in one of those very typical in movie interviews, and the guy who's hosting it just hated the
Yeah.
movie and is bluntly honest about it. Now, what did you think about that?
When he first was mad about it, when he first
Right.
showed that he was mad, I thought it was really funny, but like you were saying, it just ended up being that one joke, and they played it like 6 or 7 times before the sketch finally
I
ended.
think this is a difference between American humor and British humor. I think the audience loved that skit throughout the entire skit. I think that was probably one of, if not the top, like 3 favorite skits of the entire night, and because it just based off the applause that it was getting,
Yeah.
versus the non-shy baby sketch, which I think the audience was super quiet during that one. I wasn't really laughing that much, but then the ending hit and it felt like it was so performative and forced. Like they brought in the Charlie XCX lady and they were all dancing together, but like it wa I felt bad for them on that sketch because
It was my least favorite sketch because I didn't even understand really what it was trying to say. You're talking about the couple that had the ultrasound baby, and then, like, they were able to tell from inside the ultrasound that the baby was fake acting shy. Like, the whole thing just didn't make a lot of sense.
the joke is like people online who are pretending to be like victims or like who don't who are, how they put it like introverts when they're really extroverts but or just want the attention.
Yes.
That's babies have always wanted attention, of course, and so they were just applying the same principles. I get where the joke was inherently there, except it's a 5-minute sketch
It was
and it's just
aggravating how long it went on for.
it's yeah, and I felt like they were really going for it. I just don't think the audience liked it that much either.
I
Um,
thought the most British award, though, that's what I would give this sketch, was the 45 seconds with 4 acres, because I didn't really understand what was going on in the show, but when you're talking about, like,
what kind of
audience.
Irish is your granddad? It's
Yeah.
what kind of Irish is your granddad? That's the last sketch of the night.
Right, I was just talking about because you were saying, like, when what audience, like, seemed like, which sketch they liked the
Yes.
most. I thought that that was one where you got the most interaction, but yeah, we
I
can.
didn't even rate it because yeah, it felt very specific to that crowd. Weekend update.
Weekend update, yeah. I actually didn't mind it that much. I thought, and you will find every single place that's talking about SNL UK. This episode specifically talk about how much they went after Prince Andrew, and I really enjoyed
Yeah, they're
that.
just like my grandma. My grandma's written a, or just recently read a book about the royalty and the monarch, and I think it was actually came out before the whole Epstein file thing, but he had already had all those rumors and stuff like that. And she is also so anti Andrew. It's funny. They were pushing on that. There was a couple other jokes that they were like, I was like, oh yes, of course, this is what they're going to be concentrating on over there. I did feel like there were too many camera angles.
Hmm.
Like they kept on with the American version. It's like you get one of the wide one and then one of the side. But this one, it was like herky jerky all over. They were just getting their understanding, I guess, of it down. I guess it's new for the camera people too.
I still liked when they brought in the sailor person and his mustache was falling off
Yes,
as it was going on.
anything could happen and anything did. What'd you think of the Shakespeare sketch?
The Hamnet one. That one,
Hamnet.
or Hamlet. I felt like they were making fun of
It's Shakespeare. He's going off to London
right.
to show off all his different
Whenever he
productions.
came in with shorts or like the bike.
Didn't yeah, maybe one of his kids was named Hamnet.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think that's who he refers to, the son or something like that. And yeah, he keeps on walking in with different fashion. I liked it. I thought it was good.
I feel
What you think?
it, like, fell flat at the very end. Like, it was when they switched characters and then he was trying to show off. I think it went a little bit too long on that one too. Paddington Bear sketch, I already
Okay, so
said.
the Paddington one, I think we're gonna have a difference of opinion on here because initially when it started, I didn't like it. It was obvious where the joke was heading, and when it was just like a real bear and you heard the screams coming from the inside, I wasn't finding it funny. However, when they interviewed the people after they were injured, and you could see like their injuries with the hands and everything, and they were still talking about how much fun they had, I thought that it actually got funnier in that way.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fine. The bra size joke, I feel like that one was also really, really dumb. That they're gouging her up or whatever it was called,
Yeah.
but then there was a couple deliveries from that one lady because I feel like it was more about showing off her way of talking. I don't even know which one that was. So I do actually have like all the cast listed here,
Uh-huh.
and then I have their American counterparts.
Okay.
I went through all of them and I was like, well, I can find a little bit of different people in these people.
I wanted to talk about the Brawl one really fast. That had the biggest surprise to me because Regjon Page was in the dressing room sketch. He's the guy from Dungeons and Dragons, kind of the
I didn't
NPC
even
character.
recognize him.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was.
no, I knew it was someone famous, but I didn't know who it was who walked Tina Fey out.
Because I wasn't enjoying it, but when he showed up, I was like, that's super strange. I think out of the whole cast, though, when
I,
we're talking about the show, Hamid Anamasham.
I think he's supposed to be the star of the show. He's the first one listed, and I understand that it's alphabetical.
Yes.
However, he was in. It felt like the most skits. I feel like the person I connected him to most was Lou Wilson from College Humor and Dropout.
Oh, okay.
That's what he kind of looks like that guy to me. And then you have what is it? How do you pronounce this name? Aya Ode?
Iode Bamgoy.
Yeah, that's just Aya Edebiri. I'm just basing that off the name. A lot of these I didn't see too much of them, so I'm just going off of either the picture that I saw or just their name. Larry
Okay.
Dean.
Yeah.
Larry Dean I did see. He looks like a version of Jonathan Groff mixed with Tosh.0. That's what he looks like, but he gives off the vibes of Tape Face. I think he was the Hamnet character. And then
Yes.
he was also in the internet sketch, but
No,
he's very skinny and he's kind of like Skeletor-ish.
he was, but what I find so funny about those three people that you mentioned is they are all older than he is. I
Well, of
think Larry
course.
Dean's like 36, and everyone you mentioned is in their 40s.
Tape Face is in his 40s?
I
I
think
thought
so.
Tape Face was like 20 when he came out there. I have no idea. I don't know anything about Tape Face. As far as the rest of the cast, just give me a name and I'll tell you what I thought of them
Okay.
or like who I thought they would look like.
Okay. George Fouracres.
That's just John Higgins from Please Don't Destroy. Like it looked like they took the cast member over there and just brought
Yep.
him over to America.
Yep. Jack Sheep.
Oh, that's Paul Britton. And also any YouTuber, he's playing the role of like Pete Davidson when he first came in there. He's like, I'm too young to be here. Like he kept on making that same joke.
I know, and I'm not sure if it's him, but I know that they got some people from the internet, so I wouldn't be surprised if he actually is.
Yeah, they
Ian.
had 1,800 auditions for
Yeah.
this show. So yeah.
Ania Magliano.
Okay. So Magliano, I believe, is the lady who did Weekend Update, and I really like that she wore a suit with a tie. It
Yeah.
kind of gave her more character. I like that. But she is exactly the same person as Annabelle Marlowe. If you look at them in the cast, they look too much alike, and that can be a problem sometimes.
So because you're not going to be able to
I
tell
have
the
no
difference
idea.
between the two of
Well,
them.
Magliano has like red hair, and I don't think Annabelle Marlowe does, but so she belongs in like Game of Thrones. But other than that, I don't know.
Okay, Emma Seedy.
Emma Seedy is kind of Amy Poehler. She was actually the hardest one to kind of like pin down.
I can see Amy Poehler where you're talking though, kind of like early 2000s.
Right.
Yeah.
And the poster, she's kind of in the middle and in like undeclared kind of where Amy Poehler was situated too.
I'm interested for this one, Patty Young.
Dan Aykroyd mustache. That's all I ever. Dan Aykroyd mustache.
I thought you were gonna come up with like an actual look-alike. I feel like his look is almost very distinct.
Well, it's early Dan Aykroyd.
Okay, and then the last one, Celeste String.
Well, no, there's also Al Nash.
Oh yeah, but Celeste String.
Okay, Celeste String was, or Dring was just Katie Maravich from
From
College Humor
College
Dropout.
Humor.
hmm
Okay, and then the last one.
Al Nash is big guy, you know, the one who played. That's later Dan Aykroyd.
So two people have the Dan Aykroyd thing. Just one's earlier.
One's early
later.
Dan Aykroyd, like no offense, but handsome Dan Aykroyd, and then later on you have later Dan Aykroyd, Al Nash.
Okay, so overall, because we've gone through now the sketches and like, what would you give it?
So, like, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Would this have been better based on what I was talking about with like Tina Fey not being the central figure. Would it have been better because as if Graham Norton had been the host
I think so. I think so.
or Randy Feltface? I know
It
he's
it
Australian,
would have been pretty hard
but
to
it would have, I think, endeared.
you would have seen the person, though,
It
with
would have been
him.
no, 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 no. They've done like Muppets and stuff like that. They literally had the
Kermit's
Muppets in
never
the original.
he's never hosted. Kermit's never
The
hosted.
Muppets were part of the original
Yes,
SNL.
with Jim Henson,
Yes,
but
that would have been perfect. They kept the Muppets
like you
going.
said, Randy Feltface, he's Australian. No, what you're saying about Graham Norton, though, I agree. I think he probably would
Graham
have been
Norton
a
would have been
better one.
interesting. James Acaster would have been more prescient, I think,
Yeah.
to George Carlin type.
Yes,
And
I
it would have
agree.
kind of been like, oh, if we're not laughing at anything else, we can surely laugh at something he did. And
He'd
he
be
seemed like he might be up for something like that.
he seems like he would almost be the John Mulaney of the UK.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it would have been, I think, just an interesting kickoff that way. That said, I will not be too harsh on this show. I am going to say it has a ton of growing pains. It's only got 8 episodes this season. That has been extended from
Yeah,
6.
yeah, because it got 2 more before the release.
Apparently, the production went something like this because we didn't really get into that. But like James Longman, him and he's like the main producer of this
Yeah.
thing. They met in 2021 or announced it in 2021. And so it's been in production for quite some time. He came from the Late Late Show with James Corden. Thank you for not having James Corden in this episode. And so yeah, he's the one that if this fails, it's going to fall on his shoulders. However, I will give the pilot episode a 7 out of 10.
Oh, wow, okay.
Very generous, and I want to see how I'm calling myself generous. And I do want to see where it goes. So I will be checking it out on YouTube every once in a while to see if we get any cool skits.
I do think that is generous. I think that's fair to say. I'm going to give it an extra 0.5 to my score because it's on Sky TV, and Sky TV has my favorite ads.
The Burbs.
No, no, my favorite ads with Andrew Garfield. He's done like a series of them. So because it's on there, I'm going to just give it a 0.5. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. It has potential. I think that the cast is very ready, but like you said, growing pains so evident.
I
in this.
disagree. I don't think the cast is ready. It's like minor leagues. You can have people with extreme talent, but if you throw them into the majors, they're going to flail. You need to have the star power of the host.
So you think that the cast
pull them
wasn't ready,
ahead.
but you gave it a 7 out of 10.
I'm saying they're not ready for prime time.
So this should be like the
No, that's
off-Broadway
literally what the
SNL?
name was originally. It's like you have to give them the rope to let them do what they, not just to hang themselves though. You need to give them help and a rope. All right. Anyways, thanks for listening. Unless you have anything else
Yep.
you want to add, we'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.